This, and this one too don't look real because they didn't apply some very important stuff in their projects. So in today's video, I'm gonna give you 6 very important tips and techniques that professionals use in their projects, including creating 3D characters, environments, assets, and animations. First of all, we have subsurface scattering, which is one of those misunderstood concepts in computer graphics. It basically helps elevate the realism of translucent materials by allowing light to penetrate through the surface of objects. It is a physical property of light in which light goes through a surface of usually translucent nature and bounces inside multiple times before exiting from a different point. You can see this effect clearly if you shine a light through your fingers. The reason why subsurface scattering is important for realistic 3D computer graphics is that it is required for some translucent materials in real life, such as marble, leaves, wax, milk, and especially skin. If you ever see a render of a 3D human or a character, one reason it might look unnatural or fake is because the lack of implementation of subsurface scattering. To improve real-time efficiency, a lot of real-time computer graphics render engines only compute subsurface scattering at the surface of an object. In reality, semi-translucent materials have different values of refraction, reflection, and absorption of light. Number 2. Matching the light of the environment. Matching light in an environment is as old as the practice of visual effects itself. Lighting artists always try to match the live action plate or the 3D environment to the real environment the film crew is trying to portray. Lighting is used to create appropriate ambience for a shot while also taking into consideration external elements like the time of the day and the weather. So in essence, a VFX lighting artist does a similar job to a film crew lighting the set and trying to achieve continuity between the shots. To help create a certain tenor for the film, they use various shader settings to create effects like reflections and the appearance of wet surfaces. So you need to light your characters in the VFX scene according to the environment. If there is a light around your CG elements, they have to be lit from that direction. On the other hand, if you have a shining CG element, light has to spill over the live action environment and characters to make everything coherent and more believable. One major role of a lighting artist is also combining various CG elements from across the production pipeline, such as 3D models, CG environments, and animations, in addition to effects, and making sure that everything works within the lighting of the scene. Usually when everything is done right, you won't be able to tell which part is CG and which part is practical. On the other hand, usually when noticing something is fake, 9 out of 10 times the culprit might be bad lighting. Using HDR eyes is also a great technique when matching the scene lighting to the green screen footage. This is the case because sometimes it is physically impossible to shoot on site and artists have to rely on surrounding green screen footage. Being able to grab an HDR eye from a real site goes a long way in capturing the real lighting and reflection. Lately, studios are moving toward visual sets instead of green screen and blue screens. This as a result gives a better performance as the actors are watching their surroundings on the screen instead of looking at a green screen. It also helps with realism as the ambient lighting and reflection are reacting in real time to all the elements in the scene. Number 3. Surface imperfections. There is actually a saying that goes something like this: imperfection is digital perfection. So surface imperfections, which some people also call weathering or the effect of time on objects, is a crucial technique to achieve maximum realism. This is the case because something about very clean objects and environments just screams fake. Imperfection can be any number of things like damaged objects, fingerprints, scratches, rust, dust buildup, or anything else in between. Visual effects artists usually strive to create environments and assets that not only look real from a technical and functional standpoint, but also something that looks used and lived in and holds a place in the scene. Making something imperfect is one technique that is sometimes counterintuitive to a new artist, but it is absolutely essential for the art of realism. Number 4. Mixing live action and practical effects. This one is kinda linked to the light matching step, but it doesn't just involve lighting. Mixing practical effects and CG effects is the holy grail of visual effects. The best motion picture and live action films have mastered the art of mixing the practical with the digital. For example, when you watch a Transformer movie, you have no shadow of a doubt that those robots are sliding through the city or chasing cars on the highway. The reason why visual effects artists were able to sell the scenes is because of the mix between the practical and digital effects, as some of the crashes and explosions actually happen on camera, which makes it easier to blend between the two as the scene is already grounded in reality. Of course, there has to be good 3D models and stellar animations and lighting, but when everything comes together perfectly, your brain just can't tell the difference. Number 5. Scaling objects correctly. Talking about 3D models and animation, this is a great segue to our next point, which is the sense of scale. This is another concept that new artists fail to understand or outright neglect. Having the correct scale sometimes is key to making or breaking your shot. Most modern render engines take into consideration the real physical properties of light. For instance, very small objects would behave differently compared to oversized objects would. So having the scale right in your scene is essential to improve in realism. This is why some of the old films where they used miniature models, those films looked fake, and you can tell from the lighting that you are looking at a miniature model. Of course, visual effects give a lot of freedom, but sometimes it has to be grounded in reality, otherwise everything will end up looking fake. For instance, in the 2021 sci-fi adventure movie Dune that was created by Denis Villeneuve, he talked about how they were able to render the desert in the movie, and he mentioned how the scale of the sand was a huge problem in the original 1984 Dune, where they used a fine micro powder to sell the scale of the desert in some of the close-up shots. In the 2021 version, the VFX artists from Double Negative had to take into consideration the physics of the sand and how it interacted with the creatures. As the first time, they tried to apply the sand simulations, but they felt that the scale looked wrong, and the whole scene ended up looking like a miniature, and they had to scale the sand particles down to become even smaller. Number 6. Matching the size of objects with their speed. Around the same topic of scale, one other thing to keep in mind when talking about scale is also considering how fast things should be when moving in space, because a large object, for example, would obviously move at a lower speed. For example, in the Optimus Prime fight scenes in the second Transformer movie, one of the reasons why they looked realistic is because of the speed of movement of the Autobots and Decepticons compared to Sam's, which was much slower. Some might argue that physically speaking, there is no limitation of movement speed when it comes to scaling. Either way, movie makers and visual effects artists decided that the bigger the object is, the slower it should move. Sometimes in movie making, you don't have to do the most realistic thing, but rather the best looking thing in the screen and in the context of the scene, and most importantly, what audiences think should look real. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. You can also check some of our previous videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.